I cannot believe that we're already in the back half of 2024.
Are you kidding me?
But here we are. Before you know it, the calendar will be turning again, and that means we are already getting ready for 2025 conferences, and one that I'm personally very excited to attend, again, is the Insights EDU Conference. If you care at all about growing enrollment and building a student-centered higher ed experience, you really should be at this conference. Registration is now open, so secure your spot while early bird pricing is still available. Visit insightsedu.com for more information and to register. That's visit insightsedu.com for more information and to register.
Hey everybody, this is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, and today we are extremely excited to announce our paid subscription service. By subscribing today, you will get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content. That's right, original content and invites to special events, all while helping to sustain EdUp. To become a subscriber, go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe to our free email newsletter to learn how you can get access. Again, go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to Ed Up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode as we approach 1,000 episodes of this podcast. Probably, let's see, what month are we in? We're in July. Probably in August or early September, we'll have passed the 1,000 episode threshold, which is actually pretty insane if you think about it. Like, you know, there was a time where we were doing 6 episode releases per week. And that's how much we were recording. That's not humanly possible to keep up with, as I know, because I was forgetting my own name, talking to people. But we're so excited to achieve that in close to 300 college and university presidents interviewed on this podcast. We've talked to people all across higher ed adjacent industries. And, you know, one of the key themes I would say that has been coming up as a thread line through many of the episodes, especially the more recent ones post-COVID, is what is being done to help students from lower economic backgrounds, disadvantaged students, first-gen students. What resources are being poured into these students so that they can get what they need to get an education and build some generational wealth. That's I think what it's all about, is getting a job, building some generational wealth, and how do we as an educational community come together to do that? Higher ed has not historically been really good at that on our own. We need other companies and other resources to complement our efforts in higher education. And I say we, as you know, I'm a former reformed higher ed administrator. As of last month, after 23 years, I took a step into ed tech as the VP of Industry Engagement at Ellucian, where I'm very, very honored to work. But 23 years in higher ed helping students, you just can't do it alone. It takes a village. And so I found somebody that brings a village with her. So we're going to bring her in right now, ladies and gentlemen. Her name is Aimée Eubanks Davis, and she is the founder and CEO at Braven. Aimée, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Joe, for having me. I'm super excited to be here, though I have to say I'm sitting here like, gosh, I wish I could have been the 1,000th episode.
The number 1,000? Well, maybe
yeah.
Well, then we'll be put in this position. Do we save this incredible interview for a few weeks, or is it just so darn good we have to release it? Maybe you'll be the judge of that.
We'll see. It will be up to you, of course.
All right, fair. It does take a village, doesn't it, Aimée? It takes a village
Absolutely.
to help a student, and you're the founder of Braven. Level set for our audience. Tell us, for somebody that doesn't know Braven, what do you do? How do you do it?
Yeah.
Who do you serve?
Yeah, so Braven started a little over 10 years ago. We work with students inside of their higher education institutions who are often first in their families to go to college on the Pell Grant. And we help them through running a credit-bearing course that leads into another 2.5 years of an experience to come out and earn an entire dollar instead of 66 cents on the dollar. And we do that in deep partnership with these higher education institutions that we're in partnership with, and also with employer partners, where we have upwards of close to 100 employer partners who actually give us their talent, who helps to coach teams of 5 to 8 students when they're in the course experience, but also give us their talent to be mock interviewers when students are in the course, but then also give us their talent to be professional mentors. So for every 1,000 students in the Braven model, there's 17,000 employer hours that come in. And so as you can see, it really does take a village to do the kind of work that we do in the world of Braven. And I always say, look, we have to go slow to go fast. We have to go together to go further. There's no way that any one organization or institution is going to solve the gap in terms of why some young people who happen to be born in lower income neighborhoods or from low income backgrounds are actually under earning their higher income peers. And what we know is that it's a solvable problem, but it only can be solved if we do it together.
Tell them like it is.
You've talked, there was so much in that, and there's so much, there's a lot of guts to actually pulling this off, right? One of the things that I want to, you have some higher educational partners, to have a credit bearing course that Braven executes within the institution means that the institution has to be ready to take that credit for credit. They need to take that credit through prior learning assessment or whatever they cook up. And you go, man, this company Braven's helping these people from a lower economic background or people of color or first gens get ahead. Why wouldn't I just put this in every institution across the land? It makes total sense. But then higher ed rears its ugly head sometimes. It goes, well, it may not map to this and we have trouble taking that credit. Can you talk about some of the gymnastics that you have to go through to pull this off?
Yeah, well, first let me say, I didn't realize that there were going to be gymnastics. I came out of K-12. I'm a former 6th grade teacher. I ran a community-based organization and taught for 7 years. The reason Braven came into sight for me was from my own personal background of being in a family unit where between the ages of 4 and 14, my parents built a business that started to get more economically strong. And for my older sister and myself, we really got to experience what it meant to be economically mobile and not in some philosophical way. When more money comes into a household, young people have more opportunities. And so that's why I decided to teach and go through Teach for America to teach. I really wanted to pay it forward, in particular to the Black community. And what I do believe still is that education is a great equalizer. However, it is not enough because there are things that have shifted greatly that I think were hard for me to see when I was telling my students to go to college, rack up good debt. It's going to be like a good investment for you. Is that there is more of a cliff on the back end than I think we all realized because the world has shifted in terms of how people get employed. And I often say it's not only who you know, but it's actually who knows you that is more important. And so our students just simply do not have access to the social capital networks of their higher income peers who are getting those from the armchairs of their living rooms at their kitchen tables, from their parents' friends, their family members, etc. And so when I started this whole idea of Braven, and we started with a boot camp of 17 students in it at San Jose State, we actually were not talking to San Jose State at all. And it was a group of deans, associate deans. And what I always find is interesting, all women who were taking interest and note of what we're doing. And one senior level faculty member, actually also a woman in engineering. And one of the associate deans reaches out to me and says, you know what, I'm trying not to be annoyed with you, but you've never actually talked to us as an institution. And I was like, well, they're college students. And K-12, you of course have to go through a lot of gymnastics in order to work directly with students, rightfully so. But at college, we could set up and recruit students from there and other schools into this thing. It wasn't even called Braven at the time. And what I learned was that from that experience, the deans and the associate dean of science in particular, Elaine Collins, really understood what we were trying to do and why, and actually had the same understandings that we had. And so Braven actually started out as her class, which was Science 75. Success for transfer students. And I was like, Dr. Collins, Dr. Collins, all due respect, can we change the name? Because I don't think students are going to want to go into that course. And she was like, sure. And you're going to run it and I'm going to monitor it. And we're going to do this really collaboratively and together. I didn't realize until I met Nancy Cantor, the legendary chancellor for so many reasons of Rutgers, Newark, and so many other institutions before that is now on her way to Hunter College in the CUNY system, where she was like, this is a brilliant model, totally scalable. We need something like this. How did you get these credits? Like, how did you do that? That is not something we do in higher ed. So I learned pretty early in the Braven journey that the 3 units of credit was like getting really close to touching the third rail. of higher ed,
Mm-hmm.
in particular because of the faculty senate. I'm a former teacher. Professors are part of the reasons I get to sit here to this day. I didn't realize some of the concerns that would come in, but that's why the credits are actually the credits of the institution. It is then
Right.
how they maneuver to allow us to partner with them in order to run this really, really robust experiential learning, high impact practice alongside them.
Yeah. So, it's you don't know it until you get in how important or touchy credit and credit it is the touchiest subject.
Mm-hmm.
It has to align with university learning outcomes and program learning outcomes and so on and so on. You can get barriers no matter what kind of model you put in, even if it's the most make sense model in the world. There are going to be some barriers to anything that looks different than what's been done before. How have you helped break down some of those barriers with your partner institutions, and how are you going to do that with your next set of partner institutions?
So, we opened up by talking about it takes a village. And I think one of the things, and maybe it's just because of my own personal experience and being a person who is a member of the Black community, you really the Black community often are told to make sure that you're very respectful of ancestors and very much so understanding the role that they have played in your ability to do whatever you're doing. And so one of the things I actually said to the Braven team early on is, and it's in one of our core values, go together to go further. We need to understand the limits of our own perspective. We actually need to make sure that we are humbling ourselves to understand what it is about the institutions, how they maneuver, why the faculty members might be concerned, which, by the way, I'm all about rigor, I'm all about outcomes, I get it, you do not want anything that's going to be watered down, et cetera, when it's student facing, if you care about students at all. You want mastery, right? You want growth, you want mastery. I get all of that. And I think the way that we started to really figure this out was because we went slow to go fast. And we actually said to Dr. Collins and the others at San Jose State, well, if we're going to build this, we're going to do it together. We're going to do this in full and deep partnership. And then when we met Nancy Cantor and the incredible team at Rutgers Newark, it's been the same thing. And then we meet the folks in the CUNY system, and we started to do that at Lehman College. And then all of a sudden we were at Spelman in Atlanta, Georgia, and asked by Mary Schmidt Campbell, who was the president at the time, for a full scale, every single Spelman woman.
Shout out to Mary Schmidt. If you may, we've interviewed her a couple times in this podcast, and she's co-hosted with me before. She is the best. She's
fantastic. But every single one of those institutions and the others, it's because we also orient, I think very much so, we are going to be in partnership. We're complementing, augmenting. We are trying to help evolve, not, reform higher ed. And so I think some of it has been about how we've approached those institutions. And what we hear a lot, and this is what I always want to hear, is Braven feels like it's a part of us. Braven's trying to help us do our work at the level of excellence it's been, but even at another level of excellence with a group of students who I would argue higher education just didn't really see coming in the numbers that they came. And so it worked for a long time for a group of students that were from a certain demographic of families. And then also, I would say, in terms of a labor market, that I do think the college degree alone was enough for a long time. And it's shifted. And so I think that is what we've learned along the way, is that it's really important to know that we should humble ourselves at Braven to make sure that we're having the right partnership conversations and the maneuvering at the rate at the school. And what we've seen is really inspiring. I talk about, a lot of times people are like, oh, you're the founder and the entrepreneur. I'm like, it's alongside so many other people. There's so many other people. And I have been humbled by the entrepreneurs inside of our higher education partners, who really are the people who say, here's how we're going to get this done at this school, which is going to look a little bit different than at this other school.
You said that institutions might have been unprepared for the type of student that came in mass to their institutions. Can you go into that a little bit deeper? Because I think that, boy, oh boy, does that sit with me well, because I think I've talked to so many people, and that is also very, very common theme. And adding in that maybe we weren't prepared to serve them in the way they needed to be served, which is the other part of it. We weren't ready for this group of students, and then we weren't we were mentally ready or structurally ready. Can you go into that a little bit?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. And it's been interesting now to be in this work in the last 10 years. Young people, some things are the same, right? I'm a former teacher. I have 3 kids of my own. There's the maturation, right? There's certain things that, happens when you're 12 that are different than when you're 14, that are different than when you were 9 or 10. That part of the student is, in my opinion, very similar. There are some other dynamics around students and young people that have shifted even in 10 years in the world of Braven. And I think some of it was that education, I'm not sure I would say only in higher education, I'd probably point to K-12 too, where I was a former educator in K-12 forever, stayed stagnant as the world around students and around all of us changed. And so when I say the type of student, first and foremost, what I saw from my own students who I taught for years is like, there's nothing but awesome talent inside of this group of students. And often it is not unlocked at its fullest potential because people don't understand that there do need to be, and this is the structural part. So there's the mindset part of like, even if a student might look different than what you saw in the past, that does not mean that their potential is not as great, if not greater. I'm going to be honest, because of the journey that they have traveled to get to the doors of higher ed. And if they're on their way through, then getting them out strong into the world of work and or into the world of graduate school should not be the hardest thing for that young person. However, the structural systems do need to look different because they are not often coming with the luxury of being able to always be in a residential facility, for example. They might be commuting to a large state school and be a major economic contributor into their household. And I think that is something people didn't really think about, and where the Braven model, and again, I have to credit these associate deans and senior level faculty member at San Jose State, really started to make a lot of sense. Was it was built for a student who was going to school full-time and often to work full-time. I mean, we have students like at our campus here at National Louis University in Chicago. I mean, they're sometimes going to work twice. They're like doing the day shift and then the overnight shift, right? And so I think we just didn't think enough about what this group of students was going to need in terms of supports and how things were going to need to evolve a bit in order to meet them where they were, including bringing something in on the academic side that all students could truly access. And so I always say to people, Braven does not pick students, we pick schools. We don't pick students, but we do pick schools. And so whether it's at Spelman, we're the full-fledged initiative for the sophomore year experience that then goes to the next 2.5 years for those Spelman women, or at Rutgers Newark. Well, now every single Rutgers Newark student has Braven. They're pre-enrolled in Braven. They actually have to take it. They have to say, I don't want to be in Braven. Right. The same way at San Francisco State, our next partner, every student is got Braven in their shopping cart. They have to exit it out of its shopping cart. And it's because, again, there have been fantastic entrepreneurs inside who've said, here's how we're going to maneuver this, where the students get the credits that they need towards graduation. And honestly, the time and the space that they need to do the work, but also to be able to meet these volunteers that come in and coach the teams of 5 to 8 students, because that's really where the magic happens. We're shattering the doors open of young people who don't have the same levels of social capital connections to their higher income peers.
Yeah, social capital. So we think in higher ed degrees and, school and reputation. And it's so much of it is to your point. And I can't remember exactly how you said it, but it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Mm-hmm. It's so true, is it not? And you realize that when you get it out into the workforce as an adult and you go, you end up jobless or you have to leave a job and you call up somebody and they go, hey, you know what? We're hiring. Why don't you come over here and work for me? Next thing you know, you've skipped the interview process. You don't have to go through the same hoops as somebody else did. It is so much about, your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
That's part of what you're building, right?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that part of what you're building? And what have you seen? What kind of results and how do you even build that? I guess let's start there. How do you build something like that? Calling all higher ed marketing and enrollment management professionals. Hear, hear. The Insights EDU conference is back. This is your chance to level up your marketing and enrollment management strategies, and the EdUp Experience podcast will be there once again. Join us at the Ritz-Carlton, New Orleans, February 12th through 14th for an unforgettable conference. Registration is now open with early bird pricing.
Outstanding.
Hey everybody, this is Eubanks, Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience. Are you enjoying the conversation so far? Good, I hope so. Did you know that you can actually hear this conversation early before anybody else and ad-free, so you don't have to hear my voice during these ads? And did you also know that you could get extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content and invites to special events, all while helping to sustain EdUp? Well, if you didn't know, now you know. So go to edupexperience.com, that's EDUP experience.com, and become a subscriber today. First, you got to sign up to our free email newsletter, and then you'll find out how to become a subscriber. Again, go to edupexperience.com.
Yeah, let me actually first go to the end in mind, and then I'm a former teacher, and then go into the world.
You do whatever you want, by the way.
The end in mind is we want to get students out earning an entire dollar instead of what is likely to happen, which is 66 cents on the dollar. And over the last 10 years, we've been, depending on what's ever going on in the world of the economy, 14 to 22 percentage points above the national average for doing that. And in terms of internship attainment, which is a very important leading indicator of success on this front, we're 23 percentage points above the national average for students to have at least one high quality internship, just like we want them to end up in a high quality job that is worthy of their bachelor's degree, that has health and wealth benefits in it, including the 401k. If you really want to break poverty, that is a major engine. And then 3, is there learning and development in your role? Because basically the job market keeps changing every 2 minutes. It's like a new thing. And so is there learning and development in your role? And then finally, is there a pathway to promotion? And so then from there, how we actually do it is we partner alongside very innovative higher education institutions that are going to figure out how to make sure that this can, by and large, be a full-scale initiative towards their students. And then we work with them to create, where does the course sit? At Spelman, it's just a part of the sophomore year experience. At other schools, there are these new ways of doing the shopping cart method. You've got to opt out of it. At other schools like CCNY, City College of New York, we started out in their largest major, which is psychology, which only 2% of the people who are in psychology actually go on to be psychologists or psychiatrists, right?
The rest go into sales.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things one might do with that degree, but one is likely going to need some time and space to think about what they're going to do if they're not going to end up becoming a psychiatrist or psychologist. So we work in deep partnership with the schools on the academic side, with career services to say, okay, what are you going to do? What are we going to do with alumni affairs? Because like I said, for every 1,000 students in the Braven model, there's 17,000 volunteer hours that come in. At our best, 20% of those volunteers are actually alums of the institution, which is also good for the institutions. It's a way to get your younger alums involved in a way that is not asking them for money yet, because they just aren't at that point yet. And so we've just really built this very collaborative model inside of higher education. And then what our higher education institutions really appreciate is that we've built this bridge over in the world of nonprofits, for-profit, government, employer partners, where we're getting their talent to coach the teams of 5 to 8 students. And they're saying, this is a shared value initiative. This is actually good for our company because people are learning how to lead and manage a diverse team, and they get no pressure access to a diverse set of talent. And then in the Braven model, look, we work with schools that are going to be and can be some of the greatest economic engines of the American dream in the country. But it also means they do not have huge endowments. They just do not. And so we have to make sure that we do this in a way that they can actually afford to do it and we can afford to do it. And so we have figured out a model where over half of the revenues for Braven as a nonprofit come in actually from our corporate partners, from the shared value on that side of the training and development of their people. And then also we have a set of donor partners, which we deeply appreciate, who just get it. Like Rutgers, Newark is not going to have nearly the size of an endowment of a Princeton. And then also the schools do a sixth of the cost because they do need to have some sort of skin in the game, et cetera. But it is a shared value partnership model on 2 sides of the equation.
Excellent.
I want to come back to something you said, very innovative schools, very innovative institutions. You did stress very, and calling you out on that on purpose because I think it's worth talking about. Not mildly innovative schools that are going to limp into this model, right? Because higher ed, we tend to limp into things like, well, let's we like parts of this, but let's just try this part and see how many people do, and we'll do this pilot, and you're looking, and you said it earlier, we choose schools. Talk about this a little bit, because there's great benefit. I don't think when you're talking about features and benefits, that's very clear and you nailed it. What makes you choose a school or not choose a school? And how often are we, higher ed institutions, wanting to limp into something versus going and scaling it?
Yeah.
A lot of questions
So I have to say, this is where 10 years has been interesting. I think in the beginning, especially San Jose State and especially Rutgers Newark, and then I'd say National Louis University here in Chicago, right behind those. I mean, it really was a big innovation for them, a very quiet innovation for them as well. And I think that was the other thing that they appreciated about Braven is like, we were just quietly doing the work. I think that's what I always heard and hopefully always will hear from our school partners. Braven's is about doing the work. They aren't looking for like massive shine or anything. Like, they're just trying to get the work done.
Yeah.
And so when I say very innovative, I'm often talking about, sometimes people assume that it's like a chancellor and a president, like it has to be them. Often that person totally gets it out the gates. It usually is someone who sits on the academic side who really does understand the needs, rightfully so, the needs and the interests of the faculty and how to figure out how to maneuver their campus. I often say they are a master strategist. And so they're very innovative because they know their campus well, they know the landmines, they know who to go to first, et cetera. Because at this point, by and large, we no longer do pilots. So we started out with 17 students in a boot camp at San Jose State. We then, went to Rutgers Newark with 30 students in a non-credit bearing model because you meet Nancy Cantor and it's hard not to do whatever Nancy Cantor chose you to do. But then you meet Mary Schmidt Campbell and she was like, I'm not about to do this for some segment of the Spelman women. This is all Black women's college, and Black women earn 50 cents on the dollar to their white male peers. Is not even, but beyond even the income part of it, where there are close to 50% of those students are on the Pell Grant. And she was like, I want all. And it was at a historic year for Spelman, which put like 700 Spelman women in one semester in the model. And that's where you could just see the scale of Braven. So Braven is not meant to be like, by the way, I love niche nonprofits. I ran one. I put a bunch of students in them, but it's meant to be a scale model. And so now with our higher ed partners, like they are coming in, like San Francisco State will have at least 500 new students this semester alone. Start us off there, then we'll go to 800, then we'll go to 1,000. The same way now with our legacy site at Rutgers Newark, like we figured out a way to really create the scale model there. And so I always use the word very innovative because it takes not just the chancellor, not just the president, but these other sets of people. And then ultimately, I would argue the people who I've been most enamored by in all the right ways is actually faculty members who've said, Braven is just helping us get this type of student out well, and we can do and. It can be an and strategy. It doesn't have to be an or strategy. And I will say over the years, I've been just humbled to watch faculty members become some of the biggest champions of the model because I think they don't view us as a threat. I'm not trying to take anyone's job. I'm trying to keep jobs. And honestly, I just deeply know that, look, I don't care what anyone says. People should do whatever they want, like from how you want to go in a pathway from high school to post-secondary. But if you're first gen and low income, your chances of getting into the American middle class and staying there greatly increases by 5 times if you're able to get a bachelor's degree and then come out on the back end strong into graduate school or into a strong first job.
Yeah, value of a degree is a big question, right? I mean, we'll talk. I want to talk about that in a second with you, but I do want to go back because there are many, as we say in higher education, we are very slow to change. We are very resistant to change. We have committees that are built to withstand change and prevent it from happening. Like that's why the committees are actually built, is to make sure innovation doesn't take place. When you get down to it, everybody's just concerned about their dollars. Am I going to have a job? If we do this, what happens to me with them, right? It literally is that way. But there are very innovative faculty out there. And something like Braven might give them a chance to really showcase it. And it augments an existing, it helps augment and solve for an existing problem, not replace something.
Absolutely.
And that's what faculty always think, right? And it's like this new model of education is going to replace this class. And if I don't have students in this class and this is my class, then I won't have a job. And therefore I fight it and everybody around me fights it. And then the change doesn't happen. And literally that is exactly what happens. And I know that from experience of trying to create change myself. It's very difficult. So you have to get that coalition of really innovative faculty to do it. And this may give, if you're out there and you're innovative faculty member going, I'm looking for something to help me drive change within my institution and bring another way of doing something, Braven could be the solution, could it not?
For sure. I mean, Brian Rosenberg has written a great book, Whatever It Is, I'm Against It, which we autopsied in the world of Braven, because we really want to make sure.
It is absolutely 100% true.
Yeah, it is. And yet I'm like, but we are not these awful people. We just really aren't, because again, I came at this watching hundreds of students who I taught, and through this program that I ran, I believe in the power of the 4-year bachelor's degree to absolutely shatter open the doors of the economic mobility for this group of students. And at all, when I started to see that, for me, it was devastating that my students would start to question, or people like them would start to question whether or not it was worth it for them. Because what I knew from being a talent nerd and running a people shop at Teach for America for so many years is actually, once you come out of higher education and if you get into a strong first job, that can catapult you over time economically from a mobility standpoint. And so I don't at all feel like there is an or here. I think it's a huge and. And as someone who was an English major, I was a history major, but I have friends that were English majors and friends that were sociology and anthropology majors. I believe in the liberal arts. I went to a liberal arts college myself. I believe in the power of the liberal arts. And yet I do think we are at a point where, for a lot of reasons, the universe is saying to people, like, you have to be this or you have to be that. I'm all about the STEM majors too, if you want to be that. But what I know about talent, especially early stage talent, the biggest way to actually get them to become their greatest selves is for them to actually be passionate about what they're doing. And so I'm never looking to watch departments close if that is of interest to the student. I believe you can do, and that you can be a psychology major and come out strong on the back end into the world of work. And I just feel like even when you look at some of the most well-endowed universities, you still see all of those majors pretty much existing, and they're figuring out ways to have an and strategy. And so without a doubt, we've been the moth to the flame in many, many ways to the liberal arts major and the liberal arts schools. But interestingly enough, we have a bunch of business majors who want to participate in Braven too, because it's such an experiential based model, and all of that. But I don't know. I do think that's why, and I say very innovative, why I say that is I actually think it's not just the president and the chancellor and the provost and whatever. It's usually the academic side, including faculty members, who start to say, this is an and. This is not a threat to me. If anything, this might actually save my department and the work that I do.
Yeah, for better or for worse, faculty want students in their programs. And if something helps them keep a student in their program, that sustains them, sustains the institution, and so on. What else do you want to say about Braven before we hit the subscription part of the episode? Anything at all? Open mic.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is the thing that I really do hold on to over the last 10 years is that as much as there are troubles in the waters of higher ed, it's all over the newspaper all the time. I would even argue high middle income families are wondering what is the value of the degree, etc. Our country will not be the country that it's always been and should be destined to be without the doors of opportunity truly staying open. And honestly, when I think about those doors of opportunity staying open, what I'm seeing on the labor market side is to people who are always deeply curious and really wanting to understand how things work, how things are built, how things can evolve and change. And that actually comes from being an educator. Like, I really believe that what I've seen over the last 10 years is that education is super critical to this whole piece. It's not enough alone to not then think about how do you translate that into what happens after college, but that it shouldn't at all ever be thought that it is not critically important for a young person in third grade to learn how to read and to be doing algebra by 9th grade, and then to go into post-secondary that makes sense for them, and then get into the labor market that they desire to be in, that it's all a learning process over time that never stops.
Well, there you have it, everybody. That is incredible episode. If you have not been following Braven, I urge you to. Aimée is everywhere all at once these days. You can find her all across LinkedIn, podcasts, all across the country, the world, because the model's working. And when a model works, the people that are running that model to serve students deserve all of the accolades and mic time they can get. Ladies and gentlemen, she's Aimée Eubanks Davis, founder and CEO of Braven. Aimée, we hope you had a good time talking about Braven with us today, too.
It was great. I mean, this is an awesome podcast. And, what I love is that you're really lifting up solvable problems.
Oh, I'll pay you the $10 for saying that to me later. They know, honestly, it's a great honor to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen to this episode. You've just EdUp'd. Higher education is evolving. And if you're in marketing and enrollment management, then you need to be at the Insights EDU conference.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Insights EDU 2025 is happening February 12 through 14 in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is your chance to explore the latest trends in higher education and discover new and innovative strategies to level up your program marketing and enrollment. Hear from some of the best speakers in the industry, from companies like Google, LinkedIn, Adobe, and more. Registration is now open, so secure your spot while early bird pricing is still available.
Hey, everybody. This is Eubanks Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience. Did you enjoy that conversation? I hope you did. Did you know that you can actually hear this conversation early on and ad-free? And you can also hear extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content. That's right, original content, and invites to special events, all while helping to sustain EdUp. Did you know that? Well, if you didn't know, now you know. To become a subscriber, go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com to subscribe to our free email newsletter to learn how you can get access. Again, that's edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.